This is the 2017 question 11 on paper 2. This is junior cert ordinary level, and this is a question on trigonometry. So the question says the diagram below shows a right angle triangle. One side has a length of x units and the hypotenuse is 3 units in length. One of the angles is 65 degrees as shown. And they give us a diagram, and I've just drawn out the diagram. And when they have this kind of like a square in the corner, that means it's a right angle, so that's 90 degrees. And use the diagram, write sin 65 as a fraction in terms of x. So sin, cos and tan are ratios that compare the different, that kind of put the ratios of how the different sides. So say first, I can get sin, cos and tan. I can learn off, say, kind of a rhyme for it, which I'll go through. Or it's also in my log tables. But in order to kind of understand how we can use sin, cos and tan, say if we have a right angle triangle, and say I'll call this angle A. So this is the angle that we're talking about. We have to label the three sides. One has to be the hypotenuse, one is the opposite, and one is the adjacent. So adjacent, if something is adjacent to something, it's beside. So first I would label the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is always the longest side, and it's going to be the side opposite the right angle. And the side opposite the right angle is this side here. So this side here is my hypotenuse. The opposite is the side opposite the angle that we're talking about. So this is the angle we're dealing with. So this side here would be the opposite. And then the one that's left is the adjacent, and that's right beside it as well. So this is the adjacent. So in my log tables, if I have a look, I can see that. So we're looking to get sin of an angle. So this is our angle A. So sin A is equal to this here over this here. But this A is the opposite, and this is the hypotenuse. So sin of an angle is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So there is also a rhyme. So say S. So ka toa, to kind of remember it. So if you want to remember it, you can use your log tables, but sometimes it's quicker to know it. So it just means that sin is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. The S stands for sin, O for opposite, and H for hypotenuse. The cos is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and then the tan is the opposite over the adjacent. And they're the only three ratios we'll be asked to find, and we need to know which is the adjacent, the hypotenuse, and the opposite. So we can see from our two formulas that we have come up with that the sin of an angle is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So if we look back to this triangle here, well, the opposite, if we compare it to this, the opposite is x, so x is equal to the opposite. The hypotenuse is 3. 3 is equal to the hypotenuse. So the sin of our angle, so sin of this angle is 65, is equal, we figured out the sin is the opposite over the hypotenuse, so it's going to be equal to x over the hypotenuse, which is 3. So this, and they asked for it in terms of x, so this is exactly right. So sin of our 65 is x over 3, and they say in terms of x, so it's okay to have x in our answer. So that's our answer for that part. And then part B, we are asked to use our calculator to find the value of sin 65, and then give your answer corrected to that one decimal place. So if we want to get sin 65 on our calculator, so the first button I press is the sin button, and then I press 65, and then I just close my bracket. So when I go like that, I get sin 65, I get a really long number, 0.906307787. But they ask correct to one decimal place. So I'm going to correct that. Sin 65 is equal to 0.9. And it's not unusual to get a very long decimal number when we're dealing with sin, cos and tan. So then it says, use your answer from part A and part B to find the value of x. So what we got from part A was sin of 65 is equal to x over 3. So we got that sin of 65 is equal to x over 3. And in part B, we got sin of 65 is equal to 0.9. So sin of 65 is equal to this, and sin of 65 is equal to this. Well, we could let this and this equal to each other to find x. So x over 3 is equal to 0.9. So if we want to get x by itself, what we could do is we could multiply both sides by 3 to get rid of our fraction. So this by 3, and then we're multiplying by 3 on the top and dividing on the bottom, so they shall cancel, and then we get x is equal to 0.9 by 3, and we can just do that on our calculator if we want, and then we get x is equal to 2.7. So we get an answer of 2.7 for x, and that is our answer.